People have got to reject this notion that they have to be protected from the outside and putting all their time and energy into that. Be the change you want to see in the world. If you want to see people strong enough to withhold a better weight, then don't worry about trying to fix systems. Just get tough. Watch how people respond to you. Watch how your kids look up to you. Watch how your family members look up to you. Watch how people turn to you and want help. We have an innate desire to get strong. We don't have an innate desire to have something else protect us. All of us. If two buttons, man. One of them is you're such a badass, nothing can ever hurt you. You get it. You know how to figure it out. You fight your way out of anything. Or a magic fairy will follow behind you and just waft things away. The terrifying thing is, this button, the magic fairy, is going to get pressed a lot more than this button. But this button, no one dies of suicide with this button. This button, race towards suicide and depression. And if you want to know why we're having a pandemic of that, and I don't want to cheapen it because it's largely microbiome and there's all kinds of health things that are going on, I'm not taking that away. But on the mental side of what's driving a lot of people not believing in that is we're just culturally reinforcing that like we're stuck, we're trapped, there's nothing we can do, that people don't understand that fulfillment has to be earned. You can't tell someone to just love themselves. You have to tell them how they earn self-respect. You have to tell them that doing hard that you don't want to do and doing it anyway, that's exactly how you gain self-worth. You can't just tell someone to feel worthy. And man, I want to more than the next person. Like I spend an inordinate amount of my time every week talking to a camera, trying to help people, to touch their lives, for real. Like my wife and I made so much money, we could have actually bought an island and retired and never worked again. But that's not what I want. Like I want that fulfillment. I want to do hard. I want to touch people's lives. I want to lift them up. I actually want to transform and change them.
Self-confidence comes from doing difficult things. Self-confidence, self-love, self-respect, it all comes from deciding to do something difficult. Here's what happens when something hard comes up and you find a reason why you can't do it. It's too hard, it's too difficult, it's too scary. Most people will let you off the hook. The people around you will say, yeah, that's way too hard. I mean, the fact you even thought about it was crazy. You let yourself off the hook, but then you realize, like, I could have done it. You know, like that's the worst feeling in the world, that you could have done something, but then you came up with an excuse as to why you can't. And that will eat you up. And even if the world lets you off the hook, recognize that they have lower standards than you. Recognize that the people who are giving you that advice and patting you on the back and saying it's okay, you don't need to do it, they don't like their life either. They're stuck. They're trapped. They're not pushing hard. They're not being aggressive for their goals. They're not tough either. And we're reinforcing that comfort loop. Every day, comfort you versus growth you are in a fight. There's a war going on inside you. Comfort you versus growth you. Comfort Evan versus growth Evan. Every day there's a fight, there's a battle, there's a war going on. And you need to decide who's going to win the fight. It's a daily thing. And the more growth you wins against comfort you, the more you start to grow. The more you start to hit your goals. The more you start to have an impact. The more you start to love yourself. Because again, even if the world would let you off the hook, you know it's just an excuse. I think most people think of it as a giant step that you have to take to build that self-confidence. It's not. I think it's much more about the daily battles with yourself that then builds up to major things. Just like you don't go to the gym and lift 400 pounds, you start by lifting 5 pounds or 10 pounds or 20 pounds or 40 pounds, whatever it is. That's how you start to build the muscle. It's much more about the daily building of the muscle to show yourself who you are, much more than the one-off heroic moments. Here's an example. So yesterday we had an insane snowstorm here in Toronto. I don't know if we can, it's kind of blurry, you can't see. We had, I can see some here behind me. It's like, look, see that mountain of snow behind me? We had an insane snowstorm. We had probably the worst snowstorm in Toronto, Canada, in a decade. I have not seen this much snow in a crazy amount of time. And so I'm going for a walk. Rucking. And rucking is where you carry a backpack. So I'm carrying a backpack of 20 pounds as I'm walking, doing my normal walk. And it's crazy outside. Normally, the rucking alone is hard enough, and I just increased the weight in the backpack. Now, there's no path to walk on. And this morning, I was walking through an area and there was zero path. The snow is up to my knees and I need to get through. So what are my options? Well, I could complain and turn around, right? Like, I could look out the window and say, it's so much snow. I'm not going to do that. I'll do it when there's less snow, and then the next day there's less snow. There's still snow, and the next day there's still snow. And then all of a sudden you just give up on the habit, right? Like you let yourself off the hook to say, I'll do it tomorrow. And then you never do it. And then the habit's gone. And that's what you're teaching yourself. This is why it leads to identity. This is why it leads to negative self-worth and negative self-confidence, because the next time you come up with an idea, you've already reinforced the training. You're training yourself that when you come up with an idea, you don't do the thing. When you say you're going to do it and you're going to start tomorrow and then you don't, the next time you come up with an idea, guess what? You've already reinforced the pattern. Like, I don't follow through. I'm not going to do that. I'm excited today, but tomorrow I won't follow through. So there's the snow. It's up to my knees, right? Up to my knees, and I'm 6'1", so it's some serious snow. Like I got to walk through, not quite that. That's probably taller than me. I don't have to walk through that much, but up to my knees. I'm looking at it, and I've got to go, 100 meters through this thing. And initially, my thought was, why is there no path? Why has nobody shoveled this? Why has nobody snowblowed this? Like, I gotta get over there. I got a backpack on. I'm rucking. I'm sweating like crazy. I'm already exhausted. Now I gotta go through this. This is when we need to catch ourselves, right? Everybody would have let me off the hook. And another me would have let me off the hook, right? Comfort Evan would have let growth Evan off the hook. So it's okay. Go back home or go the long way around where there's a path. Don't go through that snow up to your knees. And as soon as I caught it, now what? Most of the time you won't catch it. Most of the time you'll do the automatic thing. And usually the automatic thing is the comfort thing. So usually play small by default. Usually you'll look outside and see the snow and not go. Just by default, not even catching the conversation with yourself. But when you catch it, this is a really important moment. What do? Do you do the difficult thing or do you do the comfort thing? Because when you catch it and you make a conscious choice, this is how we start to either change our identity or reinforce our identity. So I looked at it, I caught it, and I said, I'm going through. Let's go. I caught the negative thinking. I caught the comfort Evan coming over, walk around, go home. Nope, not happening. We're going through. We are going through. We are going to make it through. And it was rough. I'm walking through, I'm freezing. I'm taking one kind of giant step at a time. Snow is getting all through my boots, all down my legs. I almost slip and fall. I have a coffee that I picked up. It's dripping all over the place. And in my head, as I'm going through it, it's like, this is the best. Let's go. Let's go, Evan. You got this, man. Let's go. You do difficult things. That's the thing on repeat in my head. Combined with that, I'm also telling myself that, you know what? Not only am I doing this difficult thing for me, I'm also creating a path for other people, that the next person who comes up against this 100 meters or so, that now they will have not an easy time, but an easier time of crossing the same path so that they can get across. So it's going to service. If you're ever having a hard time getting yourself to do something, it's one, you do difficult things, remind yourself, and two, default to service, that it's not just about you, it's for other people. Now, that may not even be true. Maybe nobody ever comes across that path. Maybe I didn't make it easier for the next person. Maybe somebody comes 5 minutes after me and snow blows the whole thing, and so there was zero service. It doesn't matter. It's the story that I'm telling myself that it will serve other people, that will get you to then do the difficult thing. So, in order to make it happen, there's two triggers that I use. One is language, so scary, difficult, or hard. If you say those things, if you feel those things, if you text those things, if you write those things, if you're talking to yourself and you catch those things, then you have to do it. You can no longer accept scary, difficult, or hard as reasons for you not to do the thing. Because your great life is on the other side of scary, difficult, hard. Everything you want. The business you want, the relationships you want, the health that you want, everything, your great life. If you wrote down a list of everything you want out of life, everything on that list comes on the other side of you doing scary, difficult, and hard things. Growth you. That's growth you, fighting, comfort you. So when you catch yourself saying, speaking, writing, thinking, scary, difficult, or hard, that's a trigger. It should be a trigger. It's a trigger for me. It should be a trigger for you to go and do it. Do it. Go. Walk through the giant snow. And you might be thinking, well, how does that help me with my business? It's just walking through snow and I'm going to be cold and have snow in my boots. How does that help me? It's an identity thing. Because as soon as you start to teach yourself that you're the kind of person who follows through on those scary, difficult, hard things, then the next time that shows up anywhere in your life, in your business, in your relationships, in your health, anything that actually helps you accomplish your goals, you're going to be ready to show up for it. You're going to be more likely to actually do the thing because you've been training and conditioning yourself to do the thing. That's why walking through 100 meters of snow matters. So the first is scary, difficult, hard. Those are verbal cues or thought cues. The second is the boom, boom, boom test where your heart is beating quickly. It's like when your heart is going crazy like that, it's usually because you should be doing something. You're afraid, right? Now, don't go standing on the highway because it's scary and it makes your heart race, right? Don't be stupid. But most of the things that you're afraid of aren't actually things that are going to be life-threatening, right? They're not. Usually it's other people's opinions. Usually you're afraid of not failing, but somebody watching you fail, right? You're going to fail at something. Who's going to see you? That's what we're actually afraid of. And that cannot be a good enough reason. It can't, not anymore. If you're afraid of losing in front of somebody, if you're afraid of other people's opinions, if you are living your life based off of the expectations and judgment of other people, you will never do anything great. You will never live your great life because somebody always has a plan for what you should be doing with your life. You will never please everybody. It's not possible. You have to start to learn to please yourself. And it's not doing something just to show off and just to prove somebody wrong. I'm not a big fan of tapping into that energy. The reason to do something is not to prove somebody wrong or make somebody else look stupid. The reason to do something is because that's who you are and that's what you want to do. And so learning to do difficult things, teaching yourself step by step, brick by brick, one snow storm at a time, teaching yourself that will change your life. You deserve a better life. You deserve a great life. And that comes on the other side of you doing the things that are scary, difficult, and hard.
Also, to make sure you're actually taking action after watching this video, I've designed a special free worksheet just for this video. The worksheet will highlight all of the lessons learned in this video, as well as pull out our 3 favorite learnings and quotes that will inspire you to actually do something. The worksheet will also give you space to write down what your key takeaways are and your specific plan of action to make sure you're getting results. If you want the worksheet designed specifically for this video, absolutely for free, there's a link in the description below. Go click on it and start building the momentum in your life and your business. I'll see you there.
As Gandhi said, strength does not come from physical capacity. It comes from an indomitable will. We're talking about a man that took on an empire. And he did it not by his physical prowess, but instead by not being willing to be bowed or broken. And at the end of the day, that is something each one of us controls. That is something that each one of us can build into ourselves. We decide whether or not we can be broken. We decide how far we're willing to go. And at the end of the day, how far you're willing to go, how indomitable your will really is, comes down to one simple thing. Do you believe in what you're fighting for? Are the hard times something that you're willing to push through, to persevere, to get to the other side because you believe to the core of your being in what you're fighting for? And that is something we all have to define for ourselves. That is something we all have to build into the very core of our being. But most people just stumble through life. They daydream through life. They don't have a plan. They don't have something specific that they're aiming at. And because of that, when they hit an obstacle, because of that, when they hit something that pushes back against them, when they hit an equally obstinate force, they break, they bow, they crumble. Because they don't have that thing that they're willing to fight for. They don't have that burning ember inside of them that is dictating everything that they do. And because of that, they're never going to be able to get on the other side of that obstacle. Because of that, life is going to stop them. Because of that, every time that they try to create momentum in their life, something stops them. But it's not the thing on the outside that stops them. It's the lack of something on the inside. And as Winston Churchill said, if you're going through hell, keep going. But the only way that you're going to be able to persevere through that, the only reason that you're going to have that thing inside of you that demands that you keep going is if you believe in that thing. If you've built something up in your life that you'd be willing to die for and you live for it, when you construct that at the center of your soul, then you're going to have the tenacity to push through. Then you will see that you were not defined by your physical prowess. At that moment, you will understand what Gandhi was trying to say, that each and every one of us will be made by what we come to stand for. Each and every one of us will be constructed of our will. The things that we're able to do will be defined by that. So when you take the time to build something, build the strength of conviction. That is what will see you through hell.
For me, it was I grew up in a morbidly obese family. My uncle essentially ate himself to death when I was 12 years old, and it was scary and sad. My mom is morbidly obese, has been my entire life. My sister's morbidly obese, has been almost her entire life. My dad at one point was morbidly obese and then lost weight, but it was like, that's just where my family lived.
Yeah.
And so I was like, they're going to die far sooner than they need to. And there's this great Mother Teresa quote, "Nobody will act for the many, but people will act for the one." This may be the biggest problem we face as a society. People don't remember that skills have utility. They let you do something. You don't learn to build a house to impress your parents. You learn to build a house so people can live in the house you build. And once people understand that, like, holy, you're building this house so somebody can live in it, build a home in it, have a family, be sheltered from storms. Like, fuck, it's a real thing, man. And so all of that effort and energy you went into, I have the chills right now, is so you can create that moment for yourself, for other people. It is something so much more than going to architecture school, which maybe you went to because your parents wanted that and they were architects. And so you do that thing for that. And you forget that the whole reason you became an architect was to build houses. And so once people realize, oh, I'm putting all of this time and energy to build these things because they let me do something. What do I want to do? What do I want to give? What do I want to create? When you look at skills from that perspective, it is being a superhero. It is being a superhero. You're going to collect these abilities. These abilities actually let you do something.
Now I'm going to tell you a story, and this story pisses people off. And it goes like this. My wife, who happens to be British, big it up for England, let's say that she is with her mom, and she's in the bedroom that she grew up in. She's all safe and sound, the door's locked, the alarm is on, her mom's in the next room making sure that she's safe. But right then, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, crashes into her bedroom, and kills her. Whose fault is that? I know some other f***ers have listened to my content. I will tell you that right now. Now, if people don't know me, everybody goes to, it's dumb luck, divine providence, it's nobody's fault, how could you blame yourself? Well, let me tell you how I could blame myself. And when you hear the reality of this and you realize that I am in no way, shape, or form being hyperbolic, it actually is my fault. Here's why. I know right now there is an organization that track what are called near-Earth objects. In fact, I'm on the board of the X Prize. One of the prizes that they're trying to raise money for is for this problem, to track all these known objects and to find some way, lasers, planted nuclear explosions, something, to make sure that if something is ever on a collision course for Earth, that we can stop it. Literally, 4 weekends ago, I had a chance to vote for this, to say this should be a prize, and I didn't. So now, not only have I never sent a dime of my money to help, I've never sent an email with encouraging words, I've never called them up to tell them what I think they should do. Now I literally voted against them. So, if a meteorite happens to kill my wife, I don't have anyone to blame but myself. That's so apparently true. Now, I think it's the right decision. I think that putting the time and energy into something that has such a vanishingly slim possibility of actually happening makes no sense. You have to know where to put your energies. All of us have a finite amount of energy. So you at some point have to triage and decide, what are the things that I'm going to attack? I'm far more worried about my wife getting into a car. The likelihood of her dying is almost certainly going to be, at this point, something to do with heart disease or something to do with an aneurysm, things like that. It most certainly isn't going to be a meteorite crashing through the roof and killing her, but if it did, I wouldn't waste time blaming anyone else. Now the key here, I wouldn't beat myself up over it. I would be crestfallen. My wife is my everything. It would be a loss so devastating I don't even want to comprehend it. But I just wouldn't waste time blaming anyone else. Because the reality is, and let this come home, your life is the exact reflection of the choices you have made. Love your life? Great, you've made awesome choices. Hate your life? I'm sorry, you've made bad choices. But the good news is, you're in control.
What made it work? Like, what did you do that was crazy that other people didn't do?
Our mantra was, you can tell the world to eat less and exercise more, and it will work for every single person ever that's ever done it. But the reality is, the vast majority of the world will not do that. And we already know that, right? So people have been saying that for like 60, 70 years. And so we're moving in the wrong direction. So our thing was, don't change behavior, leverage it. So we already know people will eat things they want to eat. You can't stop people from eating a chocolate chip cookie. So the question was, could you make a chocolate chip cookie that was actually good for them? So that metabolically, it was actually advantageous to eat that cookie. Could we bust our asses that hard to make that thing? And so it wasn't easy, but now we had a mission. We wanted to end metabolic disease. Now, when you have that clarity, I know people are going to eat things based on taste purely, so we know we have to address that, which is why we made snack foods instead of like, coming out with broccoli and,
chips.
steamed.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
We made chips. And so, but if you called Quest and said, hey, I want to get in shape, what should I eat? Our answer was boiled chicken breast and steamed broccoli.
You jumped into this startup situation because I'm not getting from you that business was a driving force for you as a kid. It was about art and expression.
Yes, 1000%. I am not a born entrepreneur.
Yeah.
Not in the slightest. And part of the reason that my philosophies are what they are is because I have lived them. So when I talk about having a negative voice, it's because I have one and it is aggressive. When I talk about anxiety, it's because I had anxiety. When I talk about being able to become an entrepreneur, it's because I had to. So I didn't have the instincts. In fact, from an instinct perspective, I didn't have any. And I had to learn all of that. Now I would say I do have good business instincts because I've trained them over time, but I certainly didn't have them in the beginning. And in the beginning of my business career, and this is real, and I really want people to feel what I feel when I say this. The only contributions that I would make for probably the first 2 years of being in business, the only contributions I would make to a conference call were to say goodbye. And I remember looking forward to that because I was finally going to get to say something. But because at least I knew enough to keep my mouth shut when I didn't know and I didn't understand, I didn't want to look stupid. So I would just be quiet. I would listen and learn. And I'm very grateful to the guys that gave me that opportunity. They would let me on the call. So I was often in rooms that I probably would never have been allowed to be in if I'd been in a traditional company. But because it was a startup, they just kept letting me listen in on phone calls and stuff. So that ended up being really, really extraordinary for me. But yeah, I had to learn to be an entrepreneur.
Here's the hard truth about getting great. It takes time and dedication. It takes a willingness to accept that you're not yet good enough. It takes the ability to stare at the places that you know that you're weak, to really look at those things and not let it affect your sense of self-esteem and not let it affect your sense of self-worth, so that you can still get the momentum going. But you have to understand that in the beginning, we're all terrible. And as Henri Cartier-Bresson said, your first 10,000 photographs are your worst. And so the thing that really makes great art are the people that continue to push and the people that continue to work and face how inadequate they are and really understand that at the end of the day, greatness is a craft. Greatness is a process. Greatness is a habit. Greatness is the little things that you do every day over time, going out every day unafraid of whether or not this is one of the 10,000 terrible things that you're gonna do. It's being unafraid to make those mistakes. It's being unafraid that you're not yet great. And as Marianne Radmacher said, courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes courage is the quiet voice at the end of the day saying, I will try again tomorrow. And that's it. If you want to be great, that's what you have to do. You've got to get up again tomorrow. You've got to be willing to face another day. You've got to be willing to accept that you've got to get through the bad ideas before you can get to the good. You've got to understand that you have to start as an apprentice. You have to start as a person going and getting tea, and you have to accept that that's the job that you should be playing, that you should be working for somebody else. You should be looking up to somebody else and seeing what they can teach you, because what you know is that you're there to learn. What you know is that you're there to get through the 10,000 bad photographs that you need to get through to ultimately achieve greatness. And if you make the catastrophic error that so many make, to try to tell the world that you're extraordinary today, to try to get the world to follow you and look up to you and think that you're something today. Because the people that really win are the ones that invest today, the ones that listen today, the ones that spend every ounce of their energy amassing mastery, getting better every day, working their asses off to improve their skill set, to relentlessly look at the things that they're not doing well, to understand that they have to break themselves down and get rid of all of their ego before they can really find greatness. Those are the people that we remember. So if you want to be remembered, if you want to achieve real greatness, you just need to have the courage to show up every day and take another swing, take another photo, try another task, do something that scares you, and do those little things over and over and over until you win. As Oprah Winfrey said, what you dwell on is what you become. Once you understand that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine, and you understand that the brain actually builds faster and better connections between the things that you think on, you will begin to understand that it is incredibly important to be thoughtful about what you think about. It's incredibly important to pick a direction that you want to grow in, to decide who you want to become, and then make that the center of your focus, your thoughts, your time, your energy. And if you look inward or if you look outward and you don't like what you see, remember what Jim Rohn said. If you don't like how things are, change it. You're not a tree. And that's the beauty. That's the beautiful thing about being a human. We are so plastic and we can change so dramatically. We are so good at adapting that we forget that's literally what we do. But if you can take control of that process, if you can grab a hold of it and make it your own, if you can make it your daily obsession to make the most of your potential, to pick a very specific direction, to pick an end goal, an end state, an end identity, and work your way backwards, find out the steps that you're going to need to take to get there, to execute, and have the willingness to put in the work, to have the willingness to be both the sculptor and the clay, to understand that the suffering that comes with that, of changing yourself, of making yourself into something great, is a suffering well worth it. It's a suffering that you should embrace. It's a suffering that you should run towards, because in that suffering you can become anything you want. So start to dwell on that. Dwell on a vision of you being great. Dwell on a vision of you accomplishing your goals. Dwell on a vision of you having done this amazing thing that you want to do. Dwell on an image of you being willing to sweat and bend yourself in half and break if need to and bleed when necessary to become the vision of yourself you always knew you could become. Dwell on that and nothing can stop you.
Here's one of my favorite things about neuroscience. This literally changed my life. This affected my marriage. And when I give people the answer, Jay, they're going to think this is so dumb. But I'm talking to the 6 of you out there right now who are actually going to do this.
That are watching.
It will change their life, dude. You ready?
I'm ready.
When you take on a facial expression, you will feel the emotion. No matter what. Whether you want to or not, you will. And when I realized that the brain and the body are in a feedback loop, meaning that the brain gets as much information, so the vagus nerve, I think 82% of the signals running on the vagus nerve, which is the biggest nerve in your body, 82% is your body speaking to your brain. Not your brain telling your body to do something, your body telling your brain what's up, how to feel, sending signals that end up influencing massive amounts of both conscious and subconscious behavior. So it is truly a loop. So I don't get angry easily. And this actually used to really wind my wife up. Or I should say, but when I did get angry, I would stay angry. So it'd be like nothing, 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 nothing. Boom, now I'm pissed. And now I'm gonna be pissed for the next 8 hours or a day or 2 days. Or God, there were times I'd be mad for like 3 days.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, it's funny, I've never once come out of one of those periods and thought, you know what, I'm glad I was mad that long. That was a great use of a Saturday with my wife. This is really just a smart way of living. Every time I came out and thought this was moronic, I don't know what you're doing, you're wasting your time. So I had read this study that said if you hold a pencil in your mouth and then have somebody which sort of forces you into almost a smile, and then have people rate their levels of happiness, they'll rate it higher. And I thought that can't be true. And so the study goes on to talk about getting people to laugh out loud and all this stuff. And I thought, okay, I'm gonna try it. So I would force myself to laugh out loud and it would change my mood. Now I felt stupid doing it for sure. But about like 6 seconds in, it's so dumb and so ridiculous. And now you're getting that feedback loop that it actually becomes real and your mood lightens. And so I wrote this letter to myself and I gave it to my wife to read to me if ever I was in a bad mood. And she only had to read it to me once, and it worked so profoundly that I realized I don't need somebody to read the letter, because the notion of, and the letter was basically, because whenever you're in a fight with somebody and they try to soothe you, you reject that because you think, well, they're just doing that because they've done something to wrong me. I have a legitimate reason to be upset. They have an incentive, a perverse incentive, to see me forgive it. So I'm not going to forgive it. This is real, and some deep recess of your brain, you feel it needs to be punished. And so in that mode, you won't believe what they say because they have motive. So I had to read this letter and it was like, hey, me, it's me. You know I have no motive in this. I want nothing other than, when you're looking back on this, for you to feel like you made the right decision. And so what I want you to do right now is laugh out loud. That's it. Just take 10 seconds, laugh out loud. And at the end of that, you know it's going to change your brain chemistry. And I remember citing the study and I was like, you know it'll work, so just do it. And so she read it to me. I laughed out loud. It felt ridiculous. I didn't want to do it, by the way. I did not want to laugh out loud. But the code that I live by is, man, you always do that which moves you towards your goals. I want to have an amazing marriage, so I did it. I laughed out loud, and it changed my mood on a dime. And I was like, I can't believe this is real.
There really are only 2 macro level motivators that we have in life, and that's pleasure and pain. And so what I want people to understand is, okay, so if nature only gave you 2 things to motivate you, pleasure and pain, why would you eliminate half of them? And so most people think that life is about avoiding the pain. I'm here to tell you right now, in a very controlled fashion, it is about really experiencing the pain, learning from it. So Ray Dalio, the most successful hedge fund manager of all time, has a perfect math equation. Pain plus reflection equals progress. If you don't feel the pain, you never reflect on it. So my thing is, I spend 80% of my time focused on the beautiful things in my life, the things I'm grateful for, the beautiful things that I want to bring into existence, all of it.
20% of the time though, I'm in the darkness, man. I'm in that Tim Grover, relentless, I'm going to make this happen if I have to break myself, and I'm not afraid to lean into that because I know how powerful it is. Now, if you really want to put numbers how powerful this is, they did a study and they wanted to find out what happens, how can we get people to endure more pain? And the punchline is hilarious. So they would take people and they would submerge their arm in a bucket of ice and they would just hold it there as long as you can. Now at first it's just cold, but after a while it really starts to hurt. And so people would end up yanking their arms out. They found that people could hold their arm in the bucket 35% longer if you let them display anger. So put it in, they get to that point where they're about to pull it out and you tell them, yell, cuss, do whatever you need to, and they'd be able to do it. The expression of intensity, even what I'm doing right now, I can feel myself ready, right? I'm ready to strike, my muscles are tense, I've got a different posture, I bring my chin down, there's intensity in my eyes. Like, dude, I'm now feeling that because I'm so embodying it, right? So it makes me really feel that. And so I actually started to tell the story earlier. I hate the gym. But what I would do to make myself work out is my wife would be on the opposite side of the gym and I would stare at her and I would imagine her being attacked. And I would imagine her being attacked by people bigger than me and that the only way that I could fight them off was to get stronger. There was nothing beautiful in it. I was not worried about aesthetics. I was worried about saving my wife. And by stepping into that dark place, and because people are like, what are you doing? But dude, I needed that motivation to push past what I want, to push past pain, boredom, all of it, and just to really get into it and get a result. But I find that people shy away from that. Look, to me, it's an 80-20 split. If you're spending more than 20% of your time there, it will be corrosive. It will start to erode your sense of self because you're going to feel badly, right? Because I would be saying to myself, you're weak, come on, like you've got to get stronger. If you spend 80% of your time doing that, that sucks. I don't want to live like that. But not being able to dip into both, you'll just never hit the level of extraordinary. You may be fine. You may even be good.
Audacity is nothing. Don't worry about being audacious. The reason people fear being audacious is they don't want to be me 10 years from now when this all fails, right? They're thinking, oh man, what if this doesn't work? This guy's going to look like an asshole. And it's like, yeah, maybe other people will think that I'm a total dumbass. It doesn't matter. And why doesn't it matter? Because of technique. Because if I know how to build a house, I can build a house. So my thing is, I'm not trying to posture or be cool. I'm telling you, I have a set of skills. That set of skills lets me do things. I'm just interested in doing those things. So whether or not I hit my timelines does not matter. I'm in the skill acquisition game. Skills let you do things. I'm in the game of doing the things that my skills allow me to do. So I want to impact people's lives. Maybe I'm not able to pull it off at a film level. I'll find another way. Or maybe it takes me a lot longer to pull it off. Okay, fine. As long as I love what I'm doing, even when I'm failing, there's nothing to lose.
I used to post a lot about what time I was waking up. I'd show myself in the gym sometimes at like 2 a.m. And so people started setting an alarm. And I'm like, whoa. Like, that's not what this is. Like, I sleep as much as I need to. I prioritize sleep. So I stopped doing that because I didn't want people to lose sight of what I'm really saying, which is that fulfillment is the punchline. So if we can just literally skip to the end of like the whole thing that we're going to talk about, like, all of life, the success that people are chasing, they think they want money and fame and all of that. And those things can be very valuable in a way. But what I want people to hear in my message about like working hard and discipline and all of that is the only reason that I put as much time and energy into it is because I love it. So me trying this method in something I don't love, I've lived that. I know where that ends, and it ends with me quitting. And you know, that's something that I'm sure we'll get into later, but it was like, I did that. The first 6.5 years of my journey as an entrepreneur were about the typical grinded out stuff. And look, man, it was an important phase of my life, but it ended up really chipping away at my soul. And I flirted with depression just enough in my life to know how dangerous it is. And dangerous because it will literally lead to somebody killing themselves. Or just dangerous in that, yeah, sure, you live a normal lifespan, but you hate every minute of it. And so just really understanding how you get out from under that, and like lesson number 1, love what you do. My wife and I had tried to start our first business. Well, we did start our first business, and it made money, but it made very little money. It was a photography business. And that gave me that entrepreneurial drive. Like, I wanted to do it. I had a little tinge of it when I was selling for prepaid legal, and then really felt it when I was doing the photography. But I just looked at the dollars and I'm like, this never goes anywhere. I can never make enough money. I didn't have the words to explain it, but it was because I was time for money. And you can't break the wealth equation if you're dealing in time for money. So I was like, all right, I want something more, but I don't know what that more is. And then two of the people that came through and saw me speaking about filmmaking were these two entrepreneurs. And they were the two things I'd always promised myself as a kid that I would have is that one day I would have six-pack abs and one day I would be rich. Those were my two promises. Yeah. And that really guided my life in like a very sincere and intense way for a long time. And they come across my path. Not only are they wildly successful in business, but they're yoked. And I was like, whoa. So these guys are like, yo, we're gonna work together someday. And people would tell me that all the time. And I was like, yeah. And not really believed it. And they called and said, look, we're starting this new company. And why don't you come be a copywriter? We settle for employees, but we're always looking for partners. And you can have any role in this company that you want. You just have to become the right person for that role. And
that's really their pitch.
Yeah. And I saw him make that pitch to everybody. Dozens of people.
Wow.
Dozens. And nobody did anything with it. And I was like, what the f-? Do people not see like what they're offering? And everyone was telling me, they're full of shit, dude. Like, can you not see? Like, these guys are just trying to take advantage of you. And I thought, even if they are, like, what do I have to lose exactly? Like, as long as my payroll checks are clearing and they're not doing anything unethical, I don't quite understand the risk. So everyone was like freaking out, telling me that I shouldn't do it. And I was just like, oh, wow, this seems too, like, it's too self-evident to me that I could always go back to teaching and that I might as well try this. And if it sucks, then I'll go back.
What's this fascination you have with the Matrix movie?
I am fresh out of film school, about a year out of film school. So The Matrix came out in 99, I graduated in 98. So I'm hopelessly lost at this point. And I go to a comic convention, love comic books, and I come around the corner at this divey little comic convention. Like, if you're thinking San Diego Comic-Con, this was not that. This was like a divey little thing. And I come around the corner and there is Carrie-Anne Moss, Keanu Reeves, Joe Pantaleone, Joe Silver, the producer, like just this whole panel of people. I'm like, what? And so this is like, I mean, film is the center of my life at this point. And I'm like, I can't believe these people are here. I had no idea. And they're like, hey, we're handing out tickets to the premiere tonight. You can see it on the back lot of Warner Brothers.
No way.
And I was like, oh my God, this is incredible. So I go, and I'm waiting in line, and as I'm waiting in line, literally just like in the back alley of Warner Brothers, the doors burst open, people come out screaming, and I was like, what is going on? And so I plug my ears because I don't want to hear if they're gonna give spoilers, and they all go off, but I could tell.
Something special.
Yeah, they were into this thing. Go in, sit down, we're watching it, and you know that moment where Agent Smith comes up to the cops, very beginning in the movie, and he said, I told you to wait until we got here. And he said, oh, we can handle one little girl. No, officer, your men are already dead. And they cut up to, she jumps up, and in that moment, the entire audience all at once screams, ah, like they just go nuts. And I was like, that has never happened to me before, ever in a movie. There was just something so captivating. And then ultimately, The Matrix is the perfect metaphor for the human experience. It is about a guy who from the day he shows up has the same abilities as the day at the end. But once he learns to believe in himself, then he can actually do more. Even though he had the same potential, he's able to do more at the end. And I was like, that's life. Like, you've got this potential, but if you don't believe in yourself, you're never gonna put in the work to actuate it.
I'm not afraid to be audacious because I know that you're never going to exceed what you're aiming at. So your hope is to hit some percentage of what you're aiming at. So I might as well dream massive. And one, it excites me. And then two, I'm not afraid of the failure. So once you have that, like, oh, it's exciting for me to dream big, and I'm hyper conscious of, you break it down in small pieces. Like, I'm not worried about building theme parks and all that stuff right now. What I'm doing right now today is make a good comic, put out a good interview show. That's it. That's what my life consists of. Stay in business, be profitable. Like, those are the things that I think about. So I keep my goals, my immediate term goals, very manageable, but I make sure that they're feeding naturally into the grand vision. But I don't get scared or lost and thinking, oh my God, I have to do all that. Nope. Right now, today, I need to read a script. I need to make sure it's okay. I need to authorize it to be drawn. That's it. That's today. And as long as you're able to focus on that and get good at that, and then just always push yourself to make your skill set better and better and better, as long as it's leading towards that thing and you have clarity on where you're trying to go so that you make sure the skills you're acquiring will actually lead you there, you'll be fine.
You've said it before that when you started out, there was a time when it was just about money. It was just about getting rich.
That's it. I used to repeat that over and over and over.
What? I just want to get rich?
Yeah, I just want to get rich. That's what this is. I kept saying to my wife, I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. I'm going to make you rich. Like, it was the core of my identity. From the time I was probably preteen, because this was tied to my desire to be a filmmaker, I knew, like, inside I identify as an artist far more than I do as an entrepreneur. And I was looking at, okay, I love poetry and I love filmmaking. Well, there's no money to be made in poetry, but I could become truly wealthy in filmmaking. So that for me was a creative endeavor that I could also generate tremendous wealth. And so that put me on a path, which of course was part of the reason that I went into being an entrepreneur in the first place. Was I needed to control the art, I needed to control the resources. So I had to like learn business. And so going down that path and really realizing what it took to build a business and all of that, which is a whole universe unto itself, to have the will to push through all of that difficulty, it was, I'm gonna get rich, I'm gonna get rich, I'm gonna get rich. And then just realize that maybe for Scrooge McDuck, who wants to swim in his money, that would be like a self-sustaining motivation. But somebody even like a Warren Buffett, at the end of the day, money means something to him. And it's the thing that it means that drives him. It isn't the money in and of itself. And the problem was I was literally chasing money in and of itself. If you want to believe in yourself and have a sense of self-worth, you have to earn that. And I wish it's something that somebody can give you, but they can't. But you can, doing really simple stuff. You say you're going to do something, do it.
Yes.
So my thing is, I said I'm going to go to the gym, I'm going to go to the gym. Whether I like it or not, I know that it has advantages in terms of cognitive optimization, in terms of longevity, all of that. So I'm going. Now, because I'm a learner, because that's my identity, and because I really believe whatever skill set you have today, it's already taken you as far as it's going to take you. So unless this is where you want to be for the rest of your life, you've got to be open to change. You've got to hunger for it. So I don't fear change. I actually enjoy change because change has been the thing that's allowed me to improve my life consistently. And so I'm always looking for ways in which I'm wrong because I don't value myself for being right. And once people understand that for me, it wasn't, in the beginning, I was just telling myself to do that. It wasn't at a limbic level. Now I've been telling myself to value myself only for my willingness to admit when I'm wrong and to learn. That at a limbic level, it's true. So when somebody tells me I'm wrong, I have this rush of like, oh my God, this is amazing. Because if they're right and I really am wrong and they're making me aware of this, I'm going to get more powerful. So, and that goes back to my real belief in skills having utility. So it's like the ego doesn't have utility. Yeah, maybe some, but it's not, when misplaced and built around the wrong things, can be super dangerous. When people say like, oh, I don't want to intern, or I want to make sure I'm getting paid when I'm worth, all that stuff, it's like, if you're focused in the beginning of your career with monetizing your current skill set, you will never get where you want to go because money only spends once unless you're really good at investing, which most young people are not. Whereas skills monetize again and again and again and again.
Great point. That's so powerful. Can you say that one more time?
Yeah, money only monetizes once, or you can only spend it once, but your skills can be monetized over and over and over.
Growing up, I didn't show any early signs of promise. A little embarrassing to put these photos up. I wish these photos were atypical, but in reality, that is what I look like pretty much all the time. I always had some sort of clown hat on. I actually wore my pajamas out and about on the streets. That's San Francisco. Yeah, that was really where I started. And wanting to do something with my life, I had this unending ease that I could do more, I could be more. I just didn't know how, and I felt trapped, but I didn't know what I was trapped by. And my own mother, who's always been my biggest cheerleader, who all but kicked me out of the house when I was panicking and didn't want to leave the state for college, was actually the only person in my graduating class to leave the state. Wasn't something that people from Tacoma, Washington did. You stayed, you went to a state school. My mom still lives less than 3 miles from the house that she grew up in. So this is not a place where people go off and explore. But my mom always felt like if I didn't do that, that I would have a lot of the same regrets that she had, that I wouldn't see the world, that I wouldn't discover myself, and that one day I would look back and say, what if I had only tried? Now, what she didn't tell me at the time, but she has since confessed, is that she just assumed I was going to fail. Now, my mom is hilarious. She's not Jewish, but you would think she is, because her whole life, since kicking me out of the nest, she's been desperately trying to claw me back. And so one day I finally asked, I said, what is with that? Like, literally, you forced me to leave and go to college, so why have you worked so hard to get me back? And that's when she said, with nothing but love in her heart, I just always thought you would fail. And that was a gift. It was really a gift, because at that moment I realized that the things that I've accomplished in my life had nothing to do with being given something at birth.
Now, I felt this unease that I was talking about, that I could do more, but I was stuck and I didn't know what I was trapped in. In 1999, a movie came out called The Matrix. That movie ended up giving me the intellectual framework to think about what was happening in my life, because there was something limiting me. There was something that made me feel adrift. And this gave me the vernacular to think about what it was. And in the movie, they talk about taking the red pill. The red pill, its only promise is the truth. That's it. It's not saying that it's going to make things better. It's simply going to reveal the way that the world really is. And that for me was incredibly intoxicating. And I took the red pill intellectually, and what I began to realize is that the mind is the matrix in and of itself. Now, there's people that'll debate whether we actually live inside the matrix, whether we're actually in a simulation, and it's a fun conversation, but I honestly don't care about the answer, because I can tell you right now, today, in this moment, I promise you, the matrix has you. If you guys know David Foster Wallace's concept of this is water, to a fish, water is so ubiquitous it ceases to exist. Now, we all have that same thing, and it's playing on us, and it's keeping us from becoming who we want to become. And that thing is our mindset. It's our belief system. It is so ever present. It is so ingrained into the fabric of who you are and the way that you process data, you don't even notice it. You don't even know that it's real. And this is the thing that impacts your life. It is your inability to see that your mindset controls everything, that it is water in and of itself. Now, when I heard this from Shakespeare, I realized that once you become aware of the water, you can change everything. That you can go from a scared, lost kid in Tacoma to whomever you want to be. And in understanding that, things began to become possible.
What makes you happy?
The easy answer and the most truthful answer is time with my wife. The other answer to what makes me happy, there's really two things. So time with my wife, and then the pursuit, which I'll put in all caps, right?
Yep.
So the pursuit of whatever, the pursuit of getting better, the pursuit of impacting the world, the pursuit of building something big that matters. The pursuit, maybe I never get it. I don't care about that. I care about the pursuit. I care about whether sincerely I'm actually trying to make it happen. Not bullshit.
Yeah.
Not just like empty dreams, but like for real. I'm actually giving myself over to this. And I spent a lot of time in the inner cities. I big brothered for this one kid for 8.5 years, completely changed my life. And then having 1,400 employees and about 1,000 of which grew up hard in the inner cities. Hard, I mean, most of them grew up in Compton. I mean, it was just some of the most extraordinary stories I've ever heard. And I realized that those people are as extraordinary as anybody. Barack Obama, Oprah Winfrey, Tony Robbins, like all those same raw materials exist in people in the inner cities that nobody believes in, nobody think will ever go anywhere. And they won't because they don't believe in themselves. And so we were talking at our most honest, like what are we really driven by? And I'm driven by that moment of awakening, which I had in my own life where I finally realized, wait, I can learn new things. So just because I'm not good today doesn't mean I can't be good tomorrow. And that filled me with so much excitement. I want to see that in other people. And I want to see what the world looks like when other people realize, wait a second, that Steve Jobs quote that the world is made by people no smarter than you is actually true. Yeah. And so if you're believing that these people are smarter than you because you did bad on your SATs, I'm just going to tell you right now, stop. So you can develop yourself. So my obsession became that humans are the ultimate adaptation machine. We are literally wired from the ground up in order to grow and improve under stress and pressure. So it's like, what's the phrase? Pressure can burst pipes, but it also creates diamonds. Yes. So it's like you need the pressure. And yes, it can hurt, but it can also make something amazing if you're willing to put yourself in that situation. So it's a weird twist of fate that humans, in order to build the muscle, you first have to tear it. There are many people that consider themselves a born entrepreneur. I am not one of them. I know that there were kids out there that had lemonade stands when they were like 6 months old. They couldn't hold their head up, but they could sell. That was not me. I was totally retarded when it came to stuff like that. I had a paper route, and they gave your money in two ways. One, they just gave you sort of a blanket weekly payment for delivering the paper, but then the other part of it was you were supposed to go collect that money. And I was too afraid to knock on the doors to collect the money, so I never got that part, but I felt so obligated that I said I would do it that I kept delivering the papers essentially for free. So that's where I started as an entrepreneur. My parents' biggest frustration was that I was epically lazy, and if they handed out gold medals for being lazy, I would have won, I assure you, hands down. There was a period in my life where I would spend between 2 and 3 hours in bed because it was warm in bed and it was cold out of bed. All right? That's true. I actually did an interview with Jocko Willink, if you guys know him, Extreme Ownership. His book totally blew me away. And in the middle of the interview, I confessed that. And he said, Tom, don't worry, we'll let you edit that out. And I said, Jocko, I actually don't want to edit that out because right now the narrative about what it means to be an entrepreneur is to be naturally gifted. And I called total shit on that. Because I'm not naturally gifted. I don't have any natural talents. And all of us are born as this lump of jelly that can't hold its own head up, that poos in its pants, and we all learn to do things. And it's that ability to specialize that makes us great. And the things that you choose to put your time and energy into, those are going to be the things that allow you to accomplish something. But all of that is a choice.
I heard a quote one time, and it so terrifies me. This, in fact, over a long enough time period, people are going to hear this quote from me so many times because seriously, man, I'm not joking. This scares me.
Wow.
And it scares me enough that it has a daily place in my life. And that is, genius is a young man's game. And when I heard that quote, I thought, whoa, the one thing that all of us touch for the briefest of moments is youth. And if you're lucky, what you'll get is a whole lot of middle age and then some old age, but you don't get a lot of youth. And so I just thought, ooh, that's really scary. And they were basing it on the number of people that win Nobel Prizes. It's almost always for work they did in their 20s and 30s, almost always. And I thought, oh, I don't like that. And so looking at why that, and the reason, I guess this is important to say, the reason that I didn't like it was I felt that my youth was really whipping by and I hadn't accomplished the things that I wanted to accomplish. So if my youth is whooshing by me, how do I make sure that I can access genius at any time? Genius shorthand for like playing at the absolute best of your game and really changing things, like really having an impact. And this is one thing I think you and I share, like I want to have impact on the world. So if I just wanted to be rich, Lisa and I would have bought an island and retired, years ago. So clearly there's something more that's motivating me, and that thing is impact and really touching lives. So it's like wanting to be able to do that. I don't want to say, well, I had this brief window in my youth and I either did or didn't make use of it. But even if I did, I don't want the rest of my life to be looking back on that. So another quote that drives me, your future should always be bigger than your past. So, all right, you've got genius is a young man's game and a personal belief of mine that you should always be looking towards doing something more than you've ever done. And so you put those two together, and I just knew I had to solve for that problem. And the only solution that I have for it is switching things up, like you said, to live at the edges. And the same book was talking about the people that do end up getting either multiple Nobel Prizes or prizes for work they did later, is it's people that would routinely change so that they would have these two overlapping areas. So like chemistry and physics, and like where those two meet, like there's new discoveries and new ways to challenge your own thinking. And so always staying fresh, always challenging my own thinking, always looking at how am I wrong? Most people go into an endeavor with the confirmation bias. In fact, you just brought that up.
Now you've had extraordinary people sitting across from you. I've been blessed to have you sit across from me today. And I'm curious if there was a common denominator between all of these people, or what have you learned that surprised you in doing the show so far?
The thing that's really surprised me is that it is so consistent.
Any moment, you can choose to believe something new about yourself. Now, the weird thing about belief is as soon as you change that belief, it becomes true. Why that is, I will never quite understand. What weird quirk of human evolution has left us in a space where simply believing it makes it true? If you think you're dumb, guess what? You're dumb. Truly. And you will act in accordance with that belief, and that should scare the shit out of you, because it scared the life out of me. And I saw myself heading down a path that I did not want to be on because I believed that I was dumb. I had a fixed mindset. I used to only apply for jobs where I knew I'd be smarter than the person interviewing me because I did not want to feel badly about myself. But you can imagine the types of jobs that I got. I once lovingly referred to myself as the king of remedial jobs. And I actually had pride in that, because what I built my sense of pride around was getting the job, was always being smart, was being right, and none of those things were moving me towards my goals. Now, if you don't know this quote, live by it. One can have no smaller or greater mastery than mastery over oneself. That's Da Vinci. Da Vinci did amazing things with his life. I wanted to do equally amazing things with mine. And if that's the game that we're playing, if I can construct my belief system, if I can choose at any moment to believe something that's more empowering than I was believing the moment before, and that will actually find its way into my actions, allow me to do things that I couldn't do the moment before, then it's like that moment in The Matrix where Neo realizes he knows Kung Fu. And that's like, as funny as that is, that's how I think about life. To me, the very fundamental purpose of life is to find out how many skills I can acquire that have utility, and then put that utility to the test in service of something greater than myself.
I used to say to myself all the time, you're going to get rich or you're going to die trying. And so, starting as a copywriter, I started busting my ass. Step number 1, I convinced my wife, we're going to, because there were 2 other partners that hired me, I'm going to pick an apartment that's no more than 5 minutes from either of them. That way, if they call me at 2 in the morning, I'll be there in 5 minutes. And they're gonna know no one else in their company is as serious as me. And I'm gonna claw my way up this company, and I'm gonna get whatever job I become the right person for, and I'm gonna work my way up. And by the time we ended up selling that company, I had clawed my way through sweat equity into owning 10% of the company and being the chief marketing officer, from starting as the copywriter. The person that everybody asked, who's the kid in the server room, was the only person that didn't have a window. They literally put me in the room with all the computer servers. But starting from there, I knew I could wow people because I was willing to grind it out. And that is one of the most valuable things that anybody can do.
You talk a little bit about seeking power.
Yeah.
And it confused me when I first heard it. I'm not sure I even liked how you said it at first until I understood it. And so can you talk to everybody about seeking power and what that means?
Yeah, this is another one of those things that internally for me, it's such a beautiful concept that I was so surprised the first time I said it out loud and somebody was like, oh, that's gross. And I was like, okay, I need to explain this then.
Yes.
So to me, power is the ability to close your eyes, imagine a world, a beautiful world, the world that you want to exist, open your eyes, and then be able to actually make that world come true. And so when I say I'm seeking power, I'm saying I'm seeking the skills that will allow me to make the world a better place. It will, whether that's to be able to connect with people and build a team and get other people excited, whether that's to be able to build a business that generates enough funds to improve the lives of the employees and the people that we touch with great products. You know, whatever that is, like to be willing and excited by the thought of going out and getting those skills, because those skills really are powerful. And to me, it's like people misunderstand power the way they misunderstand money.
This is me 60 pounds ago. And I knew if I was going to accomplish anything in my life, I was going to have to get control of my mind. Now, ironically, there's 2 ways to get control of your mind. Way number 1 is directly going to the mind, which can be very scary, can be very daunting, very ethereal. It's ephemeral, it's hard to grab onto, it's hard to touch. But way number 2 is through the body. And so I decided that my Kung Fu was going to be to get very good at developing my body. And in that process, I was going to learn about nutrition, which would allow me to help my mom and my sister. In that process, I was going to earn credibility with myself. And earning credibility with yourself is so important. Do it in micro ways. For me, just showing up to the gym every day was a micro victory. I said I was going to do it, and I did it. Now, you have to understand, I hate working out. So for all of you crazy people that get an endorphin rush from running, I hate you all. Running for me is like being stuffed into a meat grinder. There is absolutely nothing pleasurable about it whatsoever. So whatever neurological thing you guys get that you've been blessed with, I have not been blessed with that. So for me, showing up in the gym sucks. Eating a bowl of ice cream is awesome. And so getting to a better place for me was a totally different journey. Thank you. And what that was, it was just showing up every day and putting in the work. It was reading about human metabolism and understanding how what I eat impacts my body. It was earning a little bit of discipline every day, knowing that, well, I did it yesterday, I can do it again today. It was not eating something that I wanted to eat. And most importantly, and if you're taking notes, write this down, it was about changing my identity. Because at the end of the day, identity and values drive behavior.
When people come to me and they're struggling with something or whatever, I always start with the same thing. There's one belief that matters. And if you're willing to take this on, every other domino falls from here. And if you don't believe this, then we're in trouble. It's very similar, which is that the human animal is designed to learn and grow, meaning you can get better at anything, which is another way of saying everything is figure outable. You can learn this stuff. So yes, I get it. You don't know it now. I agree. You right now today, you're incapable. You're in the moment where the radio's broken. You haven't yet opened it. You're not yet trying to figure out like what pieces need to go where. You haven't done the experimentation. So I fully accept that right now you're incapable. But if you believe that you can learn,
the questions you ask yourself will determine the course of your life. I had been asking myself, what do I need to do to get rich? And it left me really unhappy. So I changed the question. And I started asking, what would I do and love every day, even if I were failing? The second law of thermodynamics is that everything moves towards entropy. Life is chaos. It takes an inhuman amount of effort to bring order to that, to find success in the middle of that. So while I cannot promise you success, I can promise you failure. I cannot promise you happiness, but I can promise sadness. So if you know those are the guarantees and the other things are the things that you have to strive for, you better be striving in service of something that in and of itself is interesting to you.
We're surrounded. They're in front of us, behind us, to the left and right of us. They can't get away this time. When you can be surrounded, when you can be in a position where you know that you're outgunned and still convince yourself that you're going to win, to go into it believing you're going to win, then you'll understand one of the fundamental truths of being a human being. To accomplish the extraordinary, first, you must believe. You have to believe in something even before you have any earthly right to believe in it. You have to be able to look inside of yourself and know that you're going to show up, to look inside of yourself and see something that nobody else can see, to know that you are playing to win, to know that you understand the way the mind works, and that if you can't believe it first, if you can't see a vision for yourself of being capable of something, then you're not capable of it. And that if you want to do what other people simply can't do, then you've got to start by convincing yourself that you can do it. That comes down to a belief about who you are and what you're capable of. And that belief is yours to hold. No one can give it to you. No one can take it away. That is who you are. A decision, a choice, a belief.
Walk us through your goal setting process.
Okay, so normally it starts with chasing my bliss. So if you have read Joseph Campbell, he talks a lot about this, and this is really powerful, and I think that's something people don't think a lot about. There is something in your life, and this is sort of my secret, not secret because I've talked a lot about it, but it's like the thing, I don't think people are hearing me. It's like in you right now, I promise, is something that you love to do, and most people dismiss it. And they dismiss it probably because they don't know how to monetize it. They don't think it can be a job. They don't think it can be a business. Their family and friends have told them, you know, that that's silly or stupid or whatever. And so they never realize, like they literally have a blinder to the fact that there is something in their life that's a raging interest. It may not be quite a passion, but it's like a raging interest. Mm-hmm. And so I'm always trying to start there. So the example that I always give to people of a raging interest is video games. So a lot of people like to play video games, or they like to read or whatever, right? So it's like the thing that they go and do when they're sort of, you know, contracting into themselves, they've had a rough day or whatever, or even Jesus, food. Like people really retreat into food, right? And so imagine becoming a food blogger, right? It's like food is that thing that gives you comfort. It's that thing that you think you have this negative relationship with. You've got this really unstable thing where you eat and you feel guilty, whatever. Like, if you could recognize that, okay, this is something that I love, there is a way to find a healthy relationship with this, I'm going to do that, and then I want to talk about it, and I'm going to, connect with other people. And even if in the beginning you don't know how to make money at it, like, do it because it will make you feel alive, right? And there's that great quote, and again, wow, I'm really forgetting my quotes today, of who said it, but it was like, don't worry about what you could be great at. Do the thing that makes you feel most alive, because what the world really needs is people who've come alive. And so, like, if you tap into that thing that makes you feel alive, like, that to me is the juice. So turn inward, don't dismiss it, no matter how silly or stupid it might be. Like, what is that thing that makes you feel most alive? So that's always where I'm starting. So when you think about what we were doing at Quest, or now what we're doing with Impact Theory, those were both moments where I turned inside and said, okay, what's me following my bliss?
This is the thing when I really sit down and try to break down for people what you need to do to be successful. There's certain places I stop because there's nothing universal to give them. And the plan is one of them, right? So I'm just ridiculously psycho about people need a goal, a hyper-specific goal, and a plan. So my thing is identify the gap between where you are and where you want to be. And that gap is a gap of skill set. And now you have to go and get those skills. But most people can't identify what skills actually lie between where they are and where they want to go. They get it like from the end result, but they don't know how to plan that out.
Yeah.
And I don't even understand, other than just sort of by intuition, how I'm doing it. I want to tell you a story, and this story is either going to make you love me or hate me. It has that effect on people. The story goes like this. My wife is British. Some of this story is true and some is made up. I'll try to delineate. My wife is British, that really is true. Let's say that she was in London visiting her family. She's in the bedroom that she grew up in. The doors are locked. The alarm is on. Her mother is sitting quietly in the next room, protecting her from all kinds of woes. And right at that moment, a meteorite comes screaming through the atmosphere, smashes through the roof, and kills my wife. Whose fault is that? Now, I know what most people are thinking. It's nobody's fault. It's divine providence. It's luck. It's fate. It just is what it is. That's not how I live my life. And I invite you all to adopt the following belief system. It's all my fault. Now, I use the word fault because it jabs people in the ribs. It gets people's attention. It makes them angry because they think I'm victim shaming or blaming the victim, and I'm not. I'm saying I refuse to ever be a victim. And if I maintain control, then there's something that I could do about it. Now, I use that example because it seems so absurd, and yet, at the same time, I know this is true. There is a group that track what are called near-Earth objects, and they're trying to make sure that if one is ever on a collision course for Earth, that we'd be able to do something about it, whether it's a laser or a planted nuclear explosion, whatever the case may be. Now, I know they exist. I even know where they are. I've never called them to give them encouraging words. I've never sent them a dime of my money. I've never sent them ideas. I know they exist. I do nothing about it. So why on earth, if it comes around and that decision bites me in the ass and my wife is killed by a meteorite, would I blame anyone else? I could have done something and I chose not to. Now here's the great news. I think it's a wise choice. I think the odds of that happening to my wife are so slim that it would be a total waste of time. But it shows you the lengths to which I had to take my mentality in order to learn the skills that I needed to learn to get where I wanted to go. And the way that I define an entrepreneur is somebody who encounters an obstacle and gets really pissed because the thought of giving up never occurs to them. And now they know they have to go over, under, through it, around it, whatever, but they're not gonna slow down and they're not gonna stop.
How do you handle competing simultaneous good ideas?
Getting something over the finish line is the key. So, it gets really boring, and there's just an innate boredom to, especially when I conceptualize it as being an entrepreneur. One of the things that every now and then, just sort of tongue-in-cheek and for fun, I'll document is when we're doing something really boring or stupid. Like this morning, I should have filmed it. Lisa spent like an hour wrangling cables. And it's like, that shit is so dull, but it has to be done. Like, otherwise, you get right up to it. Like, you've got all these grand ideas. You're going to change the world. You're going to do this amazing stuff. And then cables. are the thing that stop you, right? And so that's one of the things that makes Amazon so amazing is they get it like on a tactical level, just from a, how do you improve the customer experience? Blocking and tackling, right? It's not sexy, but you've got to do it, the blocking and tackling. So it's the same thing with doing things sequentially. You'll get these great ideas, you want to do them all, and you can do them all. There's so much time in life, but you just can't do them all at the same time. So breaking them into, and if they stack, and that, like this concept that Tim Ferriss has of the lead domino, like finding that what is the, so if you've got these 5 things that you want to do, the order that you do them in can be really critical. And then I know that in saying that I'm paralyzing people, because then they're like, well, I don't know what the order is. And yes, that's one of the things you have to get good at, is really identifying what is the sequence in which things are optimally done. And the only way to do that is to stop and think through it and think, okay, what's the lead domino? If I do this, then what are the other things that fall? So take, for me, speed reading, or the way I do it, Audible, that was like the lead domino. If I can train myself to assimilate information faster, then I can get a skill faster. And if I can get a skill faster, then I can execute faster. So I actually put a lot of early energy into learning to listen to Audible books at 3x, right? So people always think that like I'm crazy. And part of me is always hoping like someone will say, show me your Audible right now. I want to see that it's actually at 3x. Because it's like I put so much energy and effort into being able to do that, and people think that, oh well, you just have some lucky skill. It's not that. It, like anything, you just push yourself to do it. And I'm absolutely horrific at speed reading. So if I hadn't gotten into Audible, I would have really had to force myself to do that, because it's a lead domino. So find those things that that are the lead dominoes, and just ask like, what's gonna, if I do this thing, what's the one that gives me the exponential result on the other stuff?
This has been one of my favorite weeks, and it's been one of my favorite weeks for a reason that's probably very counterintuitive for everybody. It's because I've been tested. Last week I was sick. I don't know if it was the flu, food poisoning, whatever it was, but I had my ass handed to me. I was sleeping like 12, 13 hours a night, which for me is absolutely unheard of. And then this week I had 3 episodes to prepare for. We shot them in less than 48 hours. So over the course of just a couple of days, I had to jam-pack my brain full of 3 incredible human beings, Mel Robbins, Jason Silva, and Wyclef Jean. It was insane and entailed doing an absolute ton of work. But this is what I love. This is where I get to earn my reputation with myself. I talk about earning credibility with yourself all the time, and the only chance you get to do that is when things get hard. I'm never impressed with myself, how I act when things are easy, and I'm very impressed with myself when things are hard. So I'm always actually looking for those moments when things are difficult, when I know that I'm willing to put in a level of work that other people just aren't willing to put in, that I'm willing to spend hour after hour after hour researching people, having 2 people on the same day that each require a day or a day and a half of research, so spending my entire weekend working on it, literally until the minute I go to bed. I was listening to podcasts and interviews as I'm brushing my teeth, literally making my wife put the dogs away so that I could take every possible second, every transitional moment, everything to drink in a little bit more knowledge, and then synthesize all of that stuff so that I could do an interview that nobody else is gonna be able to do. And that for me is what everybody should be doing. If you wanna do something great, if you wanna stand out, and I want this show to stand out, if you want to be able to pull that off, you've got to work harder than anybody else. There's no substitute for that. And that is the thing that I love. That is what I love about hard work. Most people just aren't willing to do it. So if you want to separate yourself from everybody else, get better than everybody else. And when you're willing to put in that work, when you actually hunger for moments like this, where you get to show yourself, because everybody else, I don't care what they think. I want to know for myself who I am and how hard I'm willing to work. So when you get these moments, take advantage of them. When they come, when you have a hard road in front of you, hit it with enthusiasm, hit it with excitement, hit it knowing that on the other side of that, you get to feel a certain way about yourself that other people will never get to feel in their lives, because it's the way that only people who push when no one's watching get to feel about themselves. That's when you'll really be extraordinary. That's when you'll really do something. That's when you will surpass everyone around you. Because you just did the work. You look forward to the test. You wanted to be pushed. You wanted to see what you're made of. That's what it's about.
I like the juxtaposition of the high intensity fight or flight sympathetic response of being in the gym, and then the parasympathetic response of meditating. And being able to rapidly shift your state, like on a physiological level, is really important. So I go from that, I come out of the gym, I'm huffing and puffing, I sit down and I see how rapidly I can calm my heart rate, how rapidly I can calm my breath, and I listen to the sounds of nature. So if it's raining outside, I'll listen to rain. If it's night, I'll listen to the sounds of like a meadow at night. Which I actually find really relaxing. And I get lost in that. Now, the reason that I do that is that shifts you into what's called an alpha wave state.
Love this.
When you get into an alpha wave state, it's commonly referred to as being calm and creative. So it's not sleepy, okay? That's like getting more into theta. So you feel completely alert, but you feel calm, you feel creative. And so parts of your brain are talking that don't normally talk. So you get these like really far-flung sort of creative answers to a problem. Since the whole point of this is to get into an alpha wave state, as soon as I feel completely calm and creative, sometimes it takes 5 minutes, sometimes it takes 30 minutes. But once I feel calm and creative, I go into thinkitating, where I let my mind begin to wander onto the biggest problems that I face in my business. And in that, I'll just have these ideas and I take notes and I go back to it. So I'm still breathing, I'm still keeping my eyes closed except when I'm taking notes. And I stay in that space, and I can sometimes elongate that for another 30 minutes. So my typical meditation's 15 to 20, and then I'll thinkitate for 10 to 40 minutes, depending on like if I'm really on a vein of something interesting. And knowing that I'm gonna be able to do that once I get into the alpha state, I actually get into the alpha state much faster because I'm not thinking, oh, is this an idea I should take a note on? I'm just like, when am I really there?
Yes.
When I feel it click in, I'm like, okay, cool. And if I have an idea, boom, then I go for it.
If you want to see the recent one-on-one interview I did with Tom Bilyeu, check it out right there next to me. I think you'll love it. Continue to believe, and I'll see you there.
I was worth $2 million on paper, and I'd never been more unhappy in my life.